What's up, everybody? Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So lots of good stuff to go over here this week. The first is good news for all of you Nissan Z fans. It's been back and forth for the past couple of years, whether they're going to have a new Z, whether they're not. There was rumors it would be a crossover. Who knows what's going on with it, but we might have a little more insight here thanks to Auto Guide, who was interviewing Michael Bunce, who's the Vice President of Product Planning for Nissan North America. So a guy that, is in charge of a lot of these decisions. And he was talking about the next gen Z. And he actually told Auto Guide, we're not going to walk away from the nameplate, and it's certainly something we're studying and working through right now, which is pretty cool. He also continues on and says, it's always been part of Nissan's heritage. Now, he didn't give any details about the next Z. I mean, I guess it still potentially could be some type of crossover, but, it sounds like they want to stay to the roots of what the Z is about. But he continues on here and says that one thing we've noticed, though, is you don't need to be necessarily hyper economical either. It doesn't need to be a $23,000 or $24,000 car. So clearly he's referencing the BRZ and the FRS 86 and their slow sales, which is partially the fault of Subaru and Toyota for not giving it any more power, but still it just doesn't sell very well. And the sports coupes that do sell well are the ones that have more power. Clearly, the pony cars are the prime example of that. So, he's saying that there doesn't have to be a super cheap car, and I'll talk more about that in a second here. But, not the greatest of news because, everyone wants an affordable sports car. But the reality of it is, as cars continue to get more advanced and get pushed towards all this hybridization, all that kind of stuff, it's really hard to make a cheap car that actually has decent straight line performance. And so anyway, he continues on here and says the last thing you want to do is make an emotional purchase and then be let down by the performance. So he's saying, he doesn't want people to have the BRZ syndrome where, it's a great car. I'm not trying to sit here and knock the BRZ, but it's just one of those things that, he thinks a lot of people buy them and are let down by the performance. I'm the prime example. Loved my BRZ for 2 years. I had to sell it for other reasons, but if I had been able to keep it, I would have definitely given it more power because that's the one thing it needed. And instead, I was like, might as well just go up to an awesome sounding V8 whenever I was able to afford it. And, that's what I ended up doing. So, and there's a lot of, I'm not the only one. There's so many people I know that used to have BRZs or FRSs that have since moved on to Mustangs or Camaros just because it's, similarly priced and you get way more for your money. Anyway, though, off of that little tangent here, but he's talking regarding the business case for the car, because that has always been the problem with the Nissan Z, is it would probably sell in such small numbers that, will they ever make any money off of it? It'd probably just be a losing scenario. But he said, we know that any investment you make in Z does have a payback in terms of its impact to our brand. And he says the Z name is an important asset that's not going anywhere. Again, kind of non-committal, saying the name's not going anywhere. It still could end up on some type of crossover, because that's what we've heard in the past is people at Nissan saying that, the Z name's going to stick around, but we're just going to have to deliver fun in a different way is kind of what they said in the past. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, as far as the, it not being affordable type thing, it could be an affordable price level. You look at, the current 370Z just retails for barely under $30,000 starting, but when they actually just came out with the 370Z, several years ago now, I think 2009, it actually, started over $30,000 even back then. And it's, a vehicle, you think about the Z's in the past, like the Nissan 300ZX, back when that came out in the late 80s, that was competing with the Corvette at the time and was priced the same as a Corvette and had similar performance and power to a Corvette. So, if you have Corvette levels of performance from a Nissan Z car and it's priced at 50 or 60 grand, that's okay as long as the performance delivers. And I think that's still, is in line with the Z heritage. It doesn't have to be a $30,000, BRZ competitor or something. As much as, a small little 240Z revival type car would be fun, I think that, these days people want the creature comforts, they want the safety. And I've always said all along, take the Infiniti Q60 Red Sport 400 motor, 400 horsepower, toss that in some refreshed, frame for the 370Z, and you could easily spit out a car, in a year or two. Obviously they could do something a little more advanced, maybe do some type of a hybridization, since that's what everyone loves these days. Throw that in, give it a little bit of an electric boost over 400 horsepower, or just tune those turbos and give it, a little bit more to be competitive with the muscle cars and whatnot. But something like that is totally in the cards. They have all the pieces in the parts bin. They just have to put it all together. So we'll have to wait and see what they decide to do with it. But anyway, cool to hear that they're working on something finally. This is in the works, whatever it is. And hopefully we'll see something here. Hopefully maybe before the end of the decade. We'll have to wait and see. Another vehicle that is coming much sooner here is, just last week I was talking about the Ferrari 488 GTO or whatever they're going to be calling it. So there were some details that leaked out. You can go watch last week's video for all those if you missed it. But this week we have a new leaked image of what it's gonna look like. Supposedly someone must have snuck a little picture here. This was originally posted on Twitter by zerototurbo.com, so looks much like you would expect a high performance 488 to look. I think it's interesting though, the wheels look very similar to Shelby's GT350 wheels to me, which is a good look, and I'm sure they're different in many ways, but just a little bit of influence there that I can see, I think. Otherwise though, looks really cool, and we should be seeing that at the Geneva Motor Show in March here, so I won't have too much longer to wait for the full reveal of that. Speaking of Geneva, we have a bunch of other cars here that have been teased or spied for Geneva. The first one here is Rimac is teasing their Concept Two, which is of course the successor to the Concept One that Richard Hammond famously crashed. And anyway, that's going to be shown in Geneva, and they're saying that like the number 2, it's larger than 1, so it's going to be a larger vehicle. They're going to make more of them. They're going to build 100 of these versus I think they did 8 of the Rimacs, and now 7 obviously remain. But anyway, for these Concept 2s, they're going to have 100 built, 20 of them will be ready to go this year. That's going to be larger and more powerful, they're saying, than the Concept 1, which is crazy because the Concept 1 already had 1,224 horsepower from its electric motors and 1,180 pound-feet of torque and could do 220 miles an hour. So something beyond that, like as if you needed more performance. But anyway, that's going to be arriving on March 6th. Another vehicle that's coming to the Geneva Motor Show that we just saw spied last week was the Rover SV Coupe. So, that we spied what looked like a shortened wheelbase version of the normal full-size Range Rover, and sure enough, Land Rover has announced they are working on it, and it's going to be available to show here at Geneva in March. And so the official teaser of it here just shows a picture of the interior from the bird's eye view here kind of thing, which is a weird teaser, but, cool nonetheless. But yeah, it was spy testing in the snow. I just talked about that last week, so this is pretty fresh that they're like, yep, it's spied, so cat's out of the bag. Here's a teaser image, which is pretty cool that they're just, being forthcoming about the existence of this vehicle. They said they're going to do a limited run of only 999 of them, and they're all going to be hand-built at Land Rover's SV Technical Center. And these SV guys are a busy bunch of people because they're also another vehicle that we just got some more info on this past week is the Range Rover Velar SVR, which will also be built there in that SV plant. And anyway, that looks pretty close to being ready to go. We have some, spy photos of it here. And Autocar, they did a report on it here, and they're saying that it's going to be using the same supercharged 5-liter V8 engine from the Range Rover Sport SVR model that's already out, but it's going to do 25 less horsepower for the Velar. You got to keep the pecking order in place. So it's going to have a total of 542 horsepower and 502 pound-feet of torque. They also are saying now, apparently the regular Velar is around 4,400 pounds, and they're saying that they're doing such a dramatic weight loss in this SVR version of the Velar that it's going to weigh under 4,000 pounds, which is crazy for any SUV, especially one as large and as luxurious as the Range Rover Velar is. And so that'll be interesting to see if that actually turns out to be true, because that would make it quite a handler if that's the case, especially with that much power. But yeah, it'd be a lot lighter than a lot of its competitors. As far as when this is going to be revealed, it's a little hazy. It could be the Geneva Motor Show, could be later on this year. Apparently, Autocar is saying that they believe the F-Pace SVR Jag is actually going to be debuting at New York in April at the New York Auto Show. So Velar could come before, could come after. We know they're kind of based on the same platform, so pretty a lot of part sharing going on there. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see when both of those are revealed. But anyway, cool to see that. Another vehicle that could debut in Geneva, we're not sure yet, is the BMW 8 Series, which we've already seen accidentally completely uncovered by someone who leaked out some pictures. But BMW is now showing official camouflage pictures of the M8 and also released a video teaser where it sounds really, really good. Now, we'd already heard how the M8's been driving running around in prototype form here for, I think, well over a year at this point. So we've already heard this, but not officially from BMW. So cool to see that, and a couple of pictures of it here. Most likely we'll be using the same motor as the M5, so count on 600 or more horsepower. It should be very impressive, but who knows, when we'll see that. I think Geneva's a decent bet, though. Speaking of the M5, though, there was some new info released about a potential competition package, which BMW has already confirmed they're doing a competition package, and they said it'll be coming sooner than you expect. So this fits. But anyway, this post is from a Bimmer Post member named Esquire, and he is saying here that he was at their Sweden snow driving academy for BMW, and he was talking with some people there, and they said that the competition package is going to be coming real soon. It's going to be starting to be produced in April. It's going to make 25 more horsepower over the standard M5, which is 600, so you're already 625, so it's back on top of the E63 SAMG with its 603, and so so they're, I guess they're going to be continuing on with these horsepower wars, which is a wonderful thing. So that could also be shown at Geneva. That's what they're saying here for the debut for that. So maybe because of that, they won't show an 8 Series or an M8. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, another vehicle that, again, could be showing up at Geneva is the Porsche 718 Boxster Spyder, which was spied testing, and it was also spied with the new 911 Turbo, which I'll talk about in a second here. Anyway, the Boxster Spyder. Now, this is different than the ones we've seen spied in the previous months, and that's because this has some larger side scoops there going on. Now, I'm not sure, obviously it's to help better feed that engine there that's mounted behind the seats. But as far as what it's using now, the recent rumor was there was going to be going back to a flat 6, use the same one as the Cayman GT4, which would be glorious, because since everyone seems to be missing the 6-cylinder in the Boxster and Cayman duo, and so, this would be cool to put it back in, even if it's for this very limited and very expensive version of the 718. But a lot of people are saying it could also have just a higher horsepower version of the turbo 4-cylinder, which would be a disappointment in my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see. But again, that is likely to debut at Geneva. Again, could be a little bit later. We'll have to wait and see. But that 911 Turbo was spied running around with it. Also, a couple new clues here we've seen, again, many prototypes here running around over the past year of this new 911 and 911 Turbo. Clearly, it's got the wider fender flares. That's how we know it's the Turbo. In the back there, you can see the full-length taillights, which we've seen already. But this one has a new fixed rear wing that we haven't seen yet. Mostly, all the other ones have had different adjustable wings. So this, I don't know if this is something just experimental or if this is something that, they're planning on doing here. I'm not sure, but anyway, interesting to see that. And the new 911s, we should be seeing them sometime before the end of the year. I don't think they're going to be on sale till next year, though. But anyway, interesting to see all that. Toyota was spy testing the most likely 2019 Toyota RAV4 for the first time here that we've seen. And it was just testing in Southern California. And so it's heavily camouflaged. We can't see too much, but we're expecting it's going to be riding on this new TGNA platform that all the new Toyotas are going to be on. Last week I talked about the Corolla being on that, the new 2020 Corolla, as well as, the Camry and Avalon are currently on that as well. Anyway, this is looking like it's pretty close to being ready to go, even though this is the first time we're seeing it spied out running around. But this could be coming as soon as the New York Auto Show, which is going to be in April here or late March. But anyway, as far as how it's going to look now, it's really hard to see with that camo, but it's likely it's going to look like the FTAC concept that was shown last fall at the LA Auto Show. Obviously it's going to be toned down from that, but if you imagine a toned down version of that concept, that's probably what we're going to be getting here. But anyway, interesting to see that spied. Other Toyota news, though, is they've officially released a new teaser image of this off-road package they're planning to offer that they're going to be showing in Chicago next month. And so the picture is purposefully very far away, so you can't really make out any details aside from the fact that it looks like it'll be applied to the Tundra, Tacoma, and 4Runner. So it could be some kind of update to the TRD Pro package, or it could be something completely new. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to see that. Hyundai was actually teasing here their new silhouette for the 2019 Santa Fe that they'll be revealing at the Geneva Motor Show, actually. I'm kind of surprised because, especially a vehicle like this aimed for the American market, you would think they would be showing it at New York. And they probably will show it there as well. But anyway, we just have a view of what it looks like here. It looks like it has some Audi influence in the headlights up front there. And you should be a little bit larger. They're saying it could go from being a 7-seater to an 8-passenger vehicle here for this new one. They're also going to have a shorter wheelbase 5-seat configuration that might be called the Santa Fe Sport. I've been hearing that name thrown around, instead of it just being the normal, just all Santa Fe's. But anyway, interesting to see that, and we should get more details revealed here as we get closer to the Geneva Motor Show at the beginning of March again. Another vehicle that was spied, and we got a cool extra shot here, accidentally kind of, is the new Ford Ranger Raptor. Now, we just had the Ranger debut a couple of weeks ago here in Detroit, but thanks to Mike Leonard and Amanda Boyd, they sent in these pictures to Motor Trend. This vehicle was just being towed, obviously the Ranger Raptor, and this was in the States, by the way, which is the first time that the Ranger Raptor has actually been spied here in the States. Otherwise, they were testing them in Australia and elsewhere, and we already have the official teaser, and this looks very much like the vehicle in the teasers already. The only new tidbit that was really cool is the wind happened to blow off the camo off of the front of the grille there. So we can see it's going to have a grille very similar to the Raptor, I guess the F-150 Raptor, we have to differentiate now. And so, it's got this bold Ford lettering there and looks very good. And so we know that Ford has already confirmed they're showing the global Ranger Raptor in Thailand on February 7th. Now, Chicago Auto Show is February 8th, so it would be convenient to the very next day just show the US version here, but they could save it for a later date as well. But considering how everything's kind of coordinated here, and the new Ranger we have is basically the Ranger that's been available elsewhere with a light tweak, I'm thinking we could get it basically a rollout at the same time, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, interesting to see that. Some other truck news is that the 2019 GMC Sierra was spied again, and we get some really close look at the actual headlights there that look like they're going to be pretty similar to headlights off of a Ford Expedition, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But anyway, it does look like it's going to be a little more traditional looking than the Silverado, and really hard to judge again through the camo, but so far those headlights look really cool and actually look better than the Silverado to me, but we'll have to wait and see. That debut is also likely to happen in Chicago since we've now already seen the Silverado and all the details regarding it, and this is very similar as far as the underpinnings. So anyway, should be seeing that relatively soon. Another vehicle that was spied was the Volvo V60 Wagon. So this is really the last of the Volvos that hasn't been updated, and so the current V60 is very old, and so basically it's just, this new one's looking like a smaller V90 wagon, which has just been recently redone, just a little bit shorter and not quite as spacious, but basically very, very similar. And this one also has a front fender plug port kind of cover over it, so clearly this is the plug-in hybrid version, which is to be expected because Volvo said that all their cars introduced after 2019 will be electrified, all of them. Now, a lot of it could be mild hybrid stuff, but still, so I don't think this will be revealed after 2019. That would mean this is another almost 2 years away. I'm sure it'll be before then, so chances are we'll probably see an introduction of a non-electrified version of this V60, at least to start, and that might get phased out down the road. But anyway, cool to see them working on that. The last vehicle that was spied this past week was the refreshed Jeep Renegade, which is a very minor refresh on the outside. It looks mostly the same. There's some larger fog lights and a couple other things that are taped over but look mostly the same. The biggest change, though, is the interior, where you can see they've cleared out the whole upper half of the center stack there in order to make room for a massive touchscreen. It looks even larger than the 8.4-inch Uconnect that's currently available on other Jeeps. I think the 6.5 inch is the largest one you can get in the Renegade currently, and this looks like it's like a 9-inch at least, probably even bigger than that. So anyway, pretty cool. I think they know that everyone wants large touchscreens in their vehicles, so they just slap an iPad in the middle there and it's good to go. But the Uconnect infotainment screens are always some of the best ones out there in my opinion, so this should be a really nice upgrade for the Renegade. Anyway, that's going to debut, could be the New York Auto Show, end of March, could be Chicago though here in a couple of weeks, since it's a fairly light refresh and doesn't look like they're trying to hide too much here. So we'll have to wait and see, but anyway, interesting to see that. Now on to a couple of rumors here. There is a German tuning company called Peugeot Racing, I think is how you say that. Anyway, they're claiming on their Facebook page that they have an absolute trustworthy and legit source that's very deep into the decisions of the management of Alfa Romeo, which to me sounds like something you would say if you didn't have a legit source. They seem to really be overselling it, but could be totally legit because what they're reporting here isn't far-fetched. So anyway, what they're claiming is that Alfa's working on a new Alfa Romeo 6C sports car, and that it'll be shown either this year or next, which is a really vague window. But anyway, we know that just a couple of weeks ago, Alfa Romeo's boss was on record as saying they're trying to figure out what to do with the 4C. They have to do some type of sports car, so they're either going to give the 4C a bigger engine, or they're going to just go with a completely different body and platform and make something totally new. And so this 6C could apply to both. It could just be, a 6-cylinder version of the 4C, and the 6C would make sense in that regard, or it could be a completely, totally new vehicle. We'll have to wait and see, but it sounds like everyone's assuming it's going to be using the Quadrifolio's 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6. 500 horsepower would be very healthy, especially in something the size of the 4C, but I don't know if they would be able to fit in the 4C, honestly. So it could be, a totally new car, and we have this very pretty rendering that was done several years ago, not an official image or anything, of just what a 6C could look like, according to one artist's, imagination. We'll have to wait and see, but anyway, cool to hear all that. Another interesting report from Autocar this past week is this new discovery that they're claiming that Jaguar is going to be moving the XJ to an all-electric platform. They're going to get rid of all gasoline-powered versions of the XJ, which is a really radical thing to, idea, I guess. You just think of the XJ as an old-fashioned cruiser, full-size luxury sedan. But anyway, they're saying that they're trying to try and compete with the Tesla Model S and the Porsche Mission E with this new XJ, or whatever they call it. I'm sure they'll probably change the name of it if they're trying to go for something so radical and different. But anyway, this would share parts with the I-Pace crossover that's going to be coming in the not-too-distant future and is already being heavily tested. And if you think about it, if you have some long wheelbase luxury sedan like the XJ, you got way more room for batteries than you even do in that crossover. So you could have way more range, and it doesn't matter how heavy the thing is because it's supposed to just be a luxurious barge of a car anyway. Obviously if they want to compete with the Tesla Model S and Porsche Mission E, maybe they try and keep the weight down to make it more dynamic, but really who cares? Just make it a huge large luxury electric sedan, and you're set, have great range there. And anyway, this shouldn't be too unexpected. We know that Jaguar has said that all Jaguar vehicles after 2020 will be electrified in some way. And so, electrified has a loose term. That could mean mild hybrid, stuff of just a higher amperage, voltage system with like 48 volt, electrical systems, or it could be something as extensive as an all electric vehicle. So we'll just have to wait and see if this is a little more sketchy just because it's such a radical departure for the XJ. But I think it certainly makes sense. Along with this story, though, they added even more bizarre news to the end of it here. They're saying that they're claiming that this XJ is actually being co-developed with a new Land Rover model called the Road Rover, which is going to be a lifted sedan or wagon that's also all electric. Which is, again, a real head-scratcher in multiple ways. First off, Land Rover making a car is totally bonkers and bizarre. And then, of course, being all electric, again, is a big leap. But again, this is not, it's going to happen eventually for both companies. But I just think it's kind of funny. The first vehicle that popped in my head whenever they said Road Rover is a lifted sedan made me think of the Subaru Outback sedan from many years ago. And Subaru's been a trailblazer, it seems, with, the crossovers before crossovers were a thing. And so who knows? Maybe they had some foresight and, had a cool idea here with the Subaru Outback sedan, which eventually got killed off, of course. But anyway, interesting to hear all that. We'll have to wait and see if that turns out to be true. Some news that does seem to be true, unfortunately, is Mercedes is confirming here that they're not going to be offering diesels in the U.S. anymore. Their head of R&D for Mercedes said the diesels are only about 3% of Mercedes sales anyway, and that's because of the recent diesel stuff that's all going on. The diesel doesn't fit into our portfolio in the U.S. is what they said officially. So now they haven't released an official statement saying we are done with diesels, but whenever the head of R&D says it, it's most likely true. They're saying that, of course, the Sprinter vans that they have for commercial uses, those will continue to offer a diesel, but that is the only Mercedes in the States to get a diesel from this point forward. Now, diesels have always kind of been iffy for the past couple of years with Mercedes because of the whole emissions thing, and now the EPA is clamping down and making them even harder to comply with this stuff, even if they are clean normal diesels. It's just really hard to sell diesels in the States these days. So they're like, you know what, 3% of the market, we don't need it, buy. And that's kind of what happens whenever you make it tough on people. So that's the way that's going. But, again, sounds like it was a small part of the market anyway. The last couple of stories here are about Volkswagen. So Auto Express spoke with some Volkswagen executives recently, and they revealed some details that are very interesting about the next-gen Volkswagen Golf, GTI, and Golf R. So all three of those are returning. The 8th gen, they're saying, is going to be debuting at next year's Frankfurt Motor Show, which that is like towards the fall. So we're talking about a year and a half away for the 8th gen, but I mean, we're just now getting the Mark 7.5 Golf and Golf GTI here in the States, and although it's been available all this past year for Europe and stuff, we're just now getting them, so it shouldn't be too long of a wait here, at least for us. And anyway, they're saying that the e-Golf will get killed off eventually, but they're also saying that we'll have some type of other plug-in hybrid hatchback in the meantime, which sounds like an e-Golf, so it's kind of confusing, but they're like, yes, we're not going to have an e-Golf in the States, so not sure, how that makes any sense, but anyway, that's just what they're saying here. They're saying the e-Golf is going to die because they're going to have the new ID hatch for Europe, and that model, is going to have completely full electric range. I think 373 miles is what they're planning for that, and so the e-Golf doesn't make sense, at least for Europe. We're not getting the ID hatch here in the States, at least not in the beginning few years. We're going to start off with the ID Cross, whatever they end up calling that, and the ID Buzz, microbus revival, and then maybe a hatchback down the road. We'll have to see. But anyway, so that's the deal on that. But the interesting stuff is the GTI and the Golf R. So they're saying that the GTI is going to have 250 horsepower and the Golf R is going to have 350 horsepower, and that's because they want to compete more evenly with the top of the competition. You got the Focus ST that's had over 250 horsepower for several years now. You have other, the Focus RS at 350, so the Golf R wants to compete as well with the 350. Not that the Golf R was much slower than the Focus RS to begin with, but this should maybe put them back on top. So we have a year and a half for that. I mean, the Golf R is going to continue to be on top just for the mere fact that it exists, considering the Focus RS is getting killed off here, just as the Focus dies and the next gen comes out. So maybe there'll be a next gen Focus RS many years off, but I think in the meantime, the Golf R is going to comfortably have the top spot there. And the last Volkswagen story here is Auto Guide's reporting something that we've already kind of assumed, and that is that the Arteon that was shown last year for Europe is coming to the United States. It's going to be replacing the CC, and then it's going to be debuting the US version. Currently we just have pictures of the European version, so the US version will probably be tweaked with the side markers and things like that a little bit. Anyway, we'll be seeing the reveal here in the States at the Chicago Auto Show here in a couple of weeks, so very soon. And that, if it's going to debut in Chicago, then chances are it should definitely be on sale before the end of the year as well, which is very exciting. I think it's a really cool looking car, and so if they price it right here in the States, I think it could be pretty successful for Volkswagen, give them a little bit of needed excitement that is kind of missing from their lineup. But anyway, that's it for all the news this week, guys. Let me know all your thoughts about everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.